Hey folks, Curtis Stone here. Today we're going to carry on our series of touring all the Canadian provinces and US states and look at each of them through the lens of homesteading and what makes the place good or bad. And so we'll consider everything, places to avoid and places to consider, and just sort of some other considerations along the way. So today we're going to look at the province of New Brunswick in Canada. We're going to zoom down there and give you guys some food for thought. So, one thing about, right out of the gate, one thing that's great about New Brunswick is you can find property for fairly cheap. And there's something to that. Also, you get a little bit of the ocean effect. So there's parts that around the edge of New Brunswick, there's lots of coastline where you get some milder weather, but you can also get some really volatile weather. Another consideration for New Brunswick, and this kind of goes for the whole eastern coast of Canada in general, is that it's pretty economically depressed. There's more people leaving there than there are moving there. And it's always been that way. People from New Brunswick, when they get to their 20s, leave. And they usually go out west. They go to Alberta to work or British Columbia. A lot of New Brunswick people in Alberta. Always been that way. Now with, the floodgates of immigration just been kind of wide open, that's probably different in some degree. I haven't been to New Brunswick in a while. I was last in, where was I? I was in, I've actually never been to New Brunswick. No, I have. I've been to Moncton. It's been a long time though. I was over in Cape Breton not too long ago. But, it's an interesting place. It's pretty sparse, low population. But let's consider some, places you want to avoid would probably be around the major cities. However, and we put these 50-mile radius markers around everything. I would say though, probably, Moncton as a city, not the same as Toronto or Montreal. Like, look at this. This is not a huge city, so I would take it with a grain of salt as far as being within proximity to a city like Moncton. Same with St. John or Fredericton. These are not major metropolitan cities. So I don't think I would have the same level of caution with distance from those cities as I would other places. Like, we just throw these 50-mile markers around everywhere, Definitely 50 miles of Toronto, at least, for sure, Detroit, Chicago, yeah. Out here in New Brunswick, not quite the same. So take that with a grain of salt that, if you were to find some decent homestead land, look at this, along these areas, it's pretty rural. Look at this. There's very little out there. Eastern Canada is very, very underpopulated. And that's, speaking to that a little bit more, it is a pretty big consideration when you think about, like, let's say you're a young family and you're just looking for a place to start homesteading, you're looking for affordable land, you might consider places like this. But it's pretty depressing in some of these places when you just only see old people and there's just no young families. I mean, I noticed this really crazy. Like, we my wife and I, when our daughter was a baby, we went out to Cape Breton for a wedding, and we had some fun with it. We rented a car and we drove around the entire island. We did the whole loop, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful country and beautiful scenery. But the two most common things you see are cemeteries and pottery shops. And so that tells you a lot about what's going on economically. And so New Brunswick isn't that much different, though it is. It is different, but East Coast in general is just a lot of space and few people and not a lot of economic activity. And so it can mean that it's challenging to even start a farm and have a clientele that are going to buy stuff from you, or just having people to spend time with outside of your immediate family. It can be kind of depressing. So I would put that as my biggest red flag, actually, as far as living in New Brunswick. Living in a place like Maine in the U.S. is actually very similar. My stuff on Do Not Disturb, but it somehow gets through. It's the same out here. It's really, really sparse. So food for thought. And so again, on the cities, that's fairly self-explanatory. Good areas, we've got a few circled here. These other towns, St. George is one where there's low population. There's lots of land around here. And you zoom in here, it's not like there's no big ag out here at all. It's small holdings, it's small farms. If anything, as far as the bigger farms, they're just growing animal feed, straw and hay, basically. So it's going to be the same in this area too. You can see some farms around here along the highways, but then when you come into some of these other areas, there's lots of trees. Like, this is rural. You can get a lot of personal space out here, but then still be close to somewhat of the amenities that are going to have the things that you need. So, consider Atlantic winter. You can get just completely buried in snow, and you can get crazy weather anomalies. So I've never been a fan of living on the ocean. I find the ocean is volatile and risky. When shit happens with the weather, it happens in the oceans first. So take that to consideration. But some of these bays are somewhat sheltered, and so you might be able to find some decent land in here for cheap. And that's probably the biggest consideration for people who want to move out here, is that it's just affordable compared to the rest of the provinces. Places like New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia are all going to be similar in that regard. But I would say the economics of it should be kind of top consideration, because what does life look like when you're there? When you've put down some roots, you bought a property, you're building infrastructure, you're now invested in this place. And, if you're not prepared for what life is going to be like, maybe think about that decision before you move out there. But definitely, when you consider any of these areas, you definitely want to go here and check it out, and see what life is like. But, just zooming around, there's tons of land. There's tons of barren land. It's a lot more flat out here. You don't have a ton of topography. You can see it's flat. So that's something to consider. But, if you're going to have flat land, you want to be near trees and maybe have some bodies of water. Nice thing about this area too in the summer is you do get rain. It's not crazy dry like some of the other boreal climates in Canada, or the arid, semi-arid deserts and the steppe climates. This type of boreal climate on the coast gives you precipitation in the summer, meaning that it's a lot easier to grow, and you don't have to pull so much from irrigation. Natural rain is a really great form of irrigation. It's probably the best. I've just gone through about a week of rain here, and now it's sunny and everything's exploding, which is what happens in the spring, which is nice. But when you have rain, it does more than your irrigation. So food for thought there. But yeah, nothing in particular about these zones, except that they're medium-sized towns that are away from the major, bigger towns, and they're going to have the amenities and things that you need, but also, and potentially have customers for a market farm or something like that. But you're going to be rural enough that you can have that privacy and security and access to resources without the risks that come with living in a big city. So food for thought there on New Brunswick. Hope you guys found this one helpful. If you like these videos, check out the links we have below. I've got a free course you can check out where I'll show you how to use Google Earth and do a lot of the things that I do, and look for potential good places and also what to look for as far as threats. So there'll be a link below or in and around this video. Check it out. Okay, guys, we'll see you in the next one.